Here at Jonesy's, we sometimes find ourselves with the misfortune of having to work on cars like this 1996 Saturn that we have affectionately nicknamed Goldmember. So the problem that Goldmember's having is that it stays at an elevated idle regardless of whether or not you are on the accelerator pedal. So you'll be pulling up to a stop sign, you push in the clutch, and it stays at about 1500, 1200 RPMs all the time, sometimes even faster than that. So you pull up to a stop sign and it just takes forever for the engine speed to come down to the 700-800 RPMs that it should. It will eventually come down, but usually it comes down right when you're ready to take off again. Usually this is caused by a vacuum leak or a bad idle air control motor. So I've determined that Goldmember has a problem with its throttle body, or at least the idle air control motor. I pulled off the air intake hose, exposing the throttle body. And if you come down here, the throttle itself is actually kind of sticky. And when you open it up all the way, you can see on the backside there's a whole bunch of carbon buildup. This is usually caused on vehicles this age by the EGR valve. It's something that you have to have for emissions, and it basically recirculates exhaust gases into the intake manifold, and as a result you get a lot of carbon buildup. This Saturn, it's pretty easy to actually remove these throttle bodies, so I'm going to go ahead and take the throttle body off. That'll give me access to get the carbon off of the backside of the throttle plate itself, and also change the idle air control solenoid. So to remove the throttle body, you've got a vacuum plug on top, which just kind of comes out pretty easily. You want to make sure you don't lose the seals on it. You have to disconnect the throttle position sensor, the idle air control. And those are the only two electrical connections that you have. And then you have to take off a brace that goes down to the EGR valve with 10 millimeter. That'll pull this brace off. The throttle cable itself cable's loose, and then there's two more 10 millimeter bolts that hold it on. And if you look at the back side, I'll get the light over here, you can see there's a whole bunch of carbon that's built up, and we need to remove that, because my theory is that it's holding the throttle plates open. And then this is the idle air control motor also, so we want to make sure that the carbon isn't getting into that and holding it open. So we'll replace that, clean all that up, and then put it back on. So I've got the throttle body on the bench, and I'm just going to start by taking the screwdriver and removing as much of the carbon as I can. Most of it comes off pretty easy, kind of just flakes off in big chunks. Then get a rag, and you want to get as much of the loose stuff off as you can. just with a rag and a screwdriver, because then when I actually put some solvent down here, and I'm just going to use brake cleaner as the solvent. You could use carb cleaner, you could use throttle body cleaner, whatever, just something to dissolve the carbon buildup. You want to make sure that you don't damage your throttle position sensor when you're doing this. And a tip to make life a little bit easier is to take a pair of vice grips and actually hold your, it's hard to deal with my two hands because of that return spring, but I can do it, is to actually just vice grip the throttle blade open so that you can get in there and clean right at the seating surface of the throttle blades. Use a little brake cleaner to help dissolve that, and it actually works really well. Works pretty quickly to get all that stuff dissolved off of there. I'm just going to keep working on this, but one final thing I want to show you is this is our idle control solenoid, idle air control. And to get that off, you just need a number 20 Torx. That guy unbolted. And you can replace this in the car. You don't have to take the throttle body off, but once I saw all of the carbon and how easy it is to actually get these off of here, I opted to just do it on the bench. So that's it. And it can get a lot of crap and a lot of carbon buildup on it, and then not effectively seal off or meter the air, because if you look inside there, there's all that carbon inside there. So we're going to get all that cleaned out and cleaned up, and this thing will look like new. Our throttle body is really clean now. Moves smoothly. Pay special attention to these vacuum lines, these ports on the top, and kind of holds it down one more time with brake cleaner. Where the idle air control motor goes down in there is nice and clean. Give it a blow. And then we're ready to install our new idle control solenoid. Good idea to lubricate that O-ring a little bit. Just a little WD-40 or motor oil or pretty much anything. And make sure that it's indexed the same way. You can install it two different directions. It'll work either way, but the wire harness won't plug in as well. Comes with new bolts. And they are the same Torx. One final note that I'm going to make is that our gasket actually came off really cleanly. If yours doesn't, you should replace this gasket here, and at least use some sealer, some really light sealer, not silicone sealer because that'll scoop all over everything, but something like Permatex gasket sealer or something like that that's fairly thin so that it won't ooze out all over the place. Once I get this installed, this idle control solenoid installed, we'll put it back in the car and hopefully that'll fix our problem. So now our throttle body's going back on. Hopefully this will solve our problem, and Gold Member will live to drive another day. Good idea to put some WD-40 or lubrication on those vacuum lines before you shove them in. And they just push in. Throttle cable. These things can be kind of a pain to get put back. You gotta kind of pull the cable out and hold the throttle open at the same time. Brace. Two nuts. And then our wire harness. Don't forget to plug those back in, because if you forget that, you will have a check engine light for sure. So now it's our air intake hose. Clips in. Hose clamp there, the breather tube, and we are done. Hopefully it'll work. So now it's the moment of truth for Goldmember. We're test driving in the nice, overcast, rainy, foggy northwest. Okay, I'm pulling up to a stop sign, and we're down to 1600 RPMs. Clutch is in, come to a stop, and we're dropping under 1,000 pretty quickly. That is definitely fixed. It used to stay kind of up around the 2,000 and then really slowly come down. And it also feels like the idle is a little smoother, and the throttle is more responsive. So stick a fork in it. Goldmember is back on the road.